Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial on aircraft carrier. Um, this time I'm just ranking the missiles or guided missiles, including ground missiles actually. I'll include two of them. Um, so this is mostly just for our new players guides, for people getting into the game, just to give a quick idea of maybe what missiles to play or what to look out for. And just how they play. So I'll kind of give tips along the way with them as well as critiques on them. Yep. I'm just gonna get into it then. So firstly, I'm gonna start with the Russian guided bomb, which is available on all Russian aircraft other than the Su-57, which doesn't carry guided bombs. So this one is TV guided. I believe it has thermals as well, but you do have to designate the target, which I will probably also make a guide on just a quick tips of everything video at some point. So just stay around for that because I'll upload that at some point. So you have to designate the target. So it's a bit finicky and it can be harder to use, but you don't have to get within range of the anti-air and risk getting shot down once you designate your target. So I prefer these over the Mavericks. So these are the Russian ones, these are the Western ones. The Mavericks you kind of use a lot more like your normal missile. They kind of lock on within like maybe a kilometer. So they're fine, but you kind of risk getting shot down and they're much more simple to use, but I'm just not a big fan of them. I just prefer guided bombs. They also just feel so much cooler to use these. It's like War Thunder top tier, really. That's how they are, not these. So then these are actually all of the air-to-air missiles, as you can see, currently in the game. This is going to be a purely opinion-based ranking in my 50 hours of playtime with over 1,000 kills and 200 deaths. So I have a 5.0 KD, so I would like to think that I actually know most of these weapons pretty well actually. And this isn't based on stats for the most part, it's just on how consistent I think they are, which I will comment on, and how I think they are used in practice. Although some of the missiles I will base on stats because they're all very, very similar, the IR guided. So getting into it with that, the A9 Sidewinder is going here. I just think it's the worst air-to-air missile, and by just a smidgen on the stats. It just is slightly worse than everything else of the IR category. So it's just a bit less consistent in my opinion. That's not to say it's bad. I've still gotten kills with it obviously, and when you're starting out it's one of the first ones you use on the F-18 Hornet and the F-35C, so you kind of have to use it, and it works up close, you know, if you're behind them with strategies of attack and like you have a good AOA, which I'll probably make a guide on. Just a quick tips, as I said, just strategies and all that. So yep, so that's going there. Then I'm putting slightly above it is the R-73E, which is available also on all Russian aircraft other than the Su-57. So it's very accessible and only slightly better than the Sidewinder because it has slightly higher Gs and thus a little bit more, capable. But it's very, very similar, really. I just wanted to put it there. The R-74Ms, which are the IR guided for the Su-57. So these pull better Gs are just better all round than this again. So you have like that. So these are just better, but still not very good when it comes to missiles. You know, they're just mostly for defense up close, or if again you've got a good AOA and you can shoot one off, then yeah, they're pretty good. But fled quite easily all of these because they are IR guided. And then above them is R77-1s. These are fire and forgets virtually, or Fox 3s. So you data link them, so you fire them, you kind of have to keep them locked on a little bit. You data link them, if you lose lock they will go to IOG, so they'll self-guide, and then they'll switch to their own radar, so fire and forget. So you can hit maybe like 30-40k with these if you just fire and forget, but you don't really on the map anyway, so the distance that they can go is a little bit lost with the map, because it's just pretty useless. I also don't find these very consistent. I don't really like any fire and forget, even though it makes up virtually all of these. They're just all very inconsistent for me personally. So then I will probably get into R77-Ms, which are these ones, which are the main ornament of the Su-57. So they're just an upgraded version of this. They're statistically the best missiles, but again they're just so inconsistent for me. They do have, you know, all of the advantages of this, and they can be pretty accurate if you data link them, but then why data link if you could just use an R27 and it'll be way more consistent. So like these are pretty pointless to me. They do have a double 4-second booster though, so one where you fire it with a good bore sight angle as well, so you can kind of like, if only notching was a thing in this game, you can kind of pull out a bit and they'll still like, you'll still have them on your radar as well with the bore sight, and they double boost, so they're more consistent. They're just an upgraded version, but that doesn't mean that I really like them. And then I would say AMRAAMs, very, very good on some aircraft, you know, like they are just the stock standard for all of the Western aircraft, like the F-16, the F-15, the F-18, the F-35, the F-22. It's available on all of them, but I think it really, really shines on the F-22, because the F-22 is kind of like, you know, a very stealth aircraft. It has very low RCS. It like, you can fire at really long ranges with these, maybe like 40-50 kilometers again, and they're very good. I think they're better than these in my opinion, and especially on something like the F-18 Hornet, you have like 12 of them, so the AMRAAM spam would be crazy if you just want to do that. I personally wouldn't do that. It's not very skillful, you know. But for grinding or a newer player, they're very just easy to use. You just lock on, data link a little bit. You can lock on at like really, really good ranges, so you're not really limited like you are with IR missiles. And they're just pretty solid all round actually, especially on F-18 Hornet. The spam is crazy. Slightly above that then is the AIM-54 Phoenix. This one's more situational, but technically better in my opinion. It might be placebo effect, but I feel like it has a bigger warhead, so it's more consistent with its airburst when it like comes up to a target. It also can hit like something like 60 kilometers, which is low-key crazy. Like, you're never gonna get that in game, but the capability is there if you want it. And you only get 6 of them on the F-14 Tomcat. Maybe it should be lower, in fact. I just think it's interesting and technically really, really good at long range. I just don't like fire and forgets like any of these. Then finally, in my opinion, as I've mentioned in a previous video, the absolute favourite missile of mine, and in my opinion the best, but also probably the most skillful of any of them, because it's very unique that it's a Fox 1, or that it requires constant radar lock, but it's the absolute king of the skies when it comes to air-to-air combat. Like, with this, I can fire a missile and I'll be guaranteed almost a kill every single time if you play it right, or if you know how to play it. if you know how to play against it by pulling some crazy G's or maneuvers, and you're not playing against something maybe like the SU-34, which I think has an increased radar radius and off-bore sight angle that you can play with, it's impossible to escape, especially in head-ons. Head-ons, you're not escaping this. You're dead if you're facing this thing. If you're against a good pilot, that is. A lot of people have no idea what they're doing with this, but that's my favourite. It's just so consistent, unlike these. It is more skill that you have to maintain constant radar lock, but I think it pays off, really, if you're willing to learn it. So, yeah, that's just my personal opinion of all of the things. Go check out my previous video, which was on the rankings of all of the aircraft, where I've done a very similar thing to here, but it's more like in-game and just going over the stats a bit more. You know, very similar to this. If you want that as like a newer player, it's pretty good for getting into. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.